Two writers trying to figure out technology.
We're so good at this.
Yes, we're so good at this. We're tech whizzes. Okay, hi everyone. It's so great to be here with all of you. We can't see you, but we're so happy you're here. Thank you for spending the middle of your week, the middle of your day with us. This is going to be such a fun conversation. My name is Ashley Winstead. I'm an author who's written books like In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, Last Housewife, Fool Me Once, The Boyfriend Candidate, and very excitingly, my upcoming book, Midnight's Darkest Hour, which is available for pre-order from Barnes & Noble, and it comes out on October 3rd. I live in Houston, so that's where I'm talking to you all from today with my husband and two cats. And I mentioned my cats because Danielle, my lovely conversation partner, also has two cats. This has been a conversation between us in the past, but let me do a more formal introduction. I am here with the brilliant Danielle Valentine. Danielle Valentine is a pseudonym for Danielle Vega, whose amazing YA books include the Merciless series and How to Survive Your Murder. Her work has been translated into or optioned for film and TV by Lionsgate and Warner Brothers. We're going to talk a little bit about optioning later. And her work has also been translated into dozens of languages worldwide. Danielle, you are coming to us from New York, where you live with your husband, daughter, and your two cats. So hi, Danielle. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. You guys didn't realize this, but this is just a cat virtual Zoom thing. Yeah. We're just going to be talking about our cats for the next hour. I really hope that's okay. I know you guys are all book fans, but that's where our interests lie.
Surprise, so. We have catfished you. Yeah, no. Okay, Danielle, congratulations on Pub Week. This is incredible. What did you do to celebrate the publication of Delicate Conditions?
I have actually had a really good pub week. I usually get very anxious and just want to hide under my desk. But this week we did a launch party last night and it was amazing. So many wonderful, beautiful people from the area came by to be supportive. And so that was really cool. And mostly I have just been not working is what my big celebration is. I'm I'm going to take a break from writing for one day and just, do all of my pub week
for one day.
Media, 1 day, 2 days, a week. We'll see how long it lasts. Yeah. I technically have a book due coming up, so can't take that much of a break. But yeah,
no, I love it and very highly relatable. Yes. Hi, everyone.
One book comes out and you immediately have to jump to the next one and be like, all right, now I have a deadline.
Very this has been fun for 24 hours, soaking up the champagne and the revelry, and then you're like, okay, back to work.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Okay, so we are all here to talk about your incredible book, Delicate Condition. Yay! This beautiful cover. And this is your adult debut, am I right?
Yes, it is. I've been writing for teens for 10 years. So this is the first time I have attempted to write for grownups.
And you did an incredible job. Okay, so we're going to have a spoiler-free discussion of Delicate Condition. So we keep this, we're not going to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't read the book yet, which came out yesterday. So I'm really impressed with anyone who's torn through it already.
Very impressed.
So will you kind of just ground us a little bit with a brief summary of the book?
Sure. So Delicate Condition is about a woman named Anna. She's an actress who is kind of on the cusp of her big break. And she wants more than anything in the world to have a family, to be a mother. And, so she's going through IVF with her husband and it looks like it's going to work out this time. She has her positive pregnancy test. Things are going well. But then she suffers from a devastating miscarriage and it's the weirdest thing. So even though her doctor, her husband, everybody in her life is like, no, the baby is definitely gone, she can still feel something moving inside of her. And nobody believes her. Nobody believes that this is happening. And this all gets kind of compounded and it gets a little worse when she starts to realize that somebody's following her and like messing with her medications, stealing ultrasound pictures, even climbing into bed with her. And again, nobody's really believing her that this is happening or that this is as bad as she thinks it is. So it's a lot about pregnancy and infertility and, labor. And it's also about medical gaslighting and relationships gaslighting and just kind of what people who are giving birth tend to have to deal with when they're just trying to have their babies.
Yeah. And okay, so I'm just going to take a very quick moment just to gush about this book. And then I promise I'll ask you questions, but this Delicate Condition is, I mean, hats off to you. My God, Danielle, it is such an incredible read. It's so beautifully, seamlessly written, so gripping. I could not put it down. And I know that this book is a horror tinged thriller. It's living in the horror and the thriller spaces. But it is a book that I would recommend to everyone, no matter really what their typical tolerance for horror or thrillers are. This to me is a book club book, should be a book club book. It's because it's so smart and there's so much to talk about here. So just really
that, Ashley. Thank you so much.
I bow to you. It is amazing. What is at the heart of Delicate Condition for you? So by that, I mean, what first drove you to start writing this book and what kept you writing day after day, those long slogs that we do as writers at our laptops? What is at the core of this book for you?
I'm so glad you asked that because I have tried to write adult books in the past and I have put them aside because of that reason, because I didn't have a strong enough why, I didn't have that connecting thing that got me through the really tricky parts of the process and kept me working on something that wasn't quite coming together the way I wanted it to. And with this book took me 3 years. It was quite a process. It took me so many drafts. I completely lost count. But I had a good why for this one. So about a year before I came up with the idea for Delicate Condition, I had a miscarriage. And it's hard to talk about this stuff because it was about as typical of a miscarriage as you can have. And as most people know, these are very common things that we deal with just like as people who are trying to have babies. But it was shocking to me how painful it was, how emotionally devastating it was, how nobody really knew what was going on. Nobody could give me answers. Just like a number of different parts of it were just really surprising with how just awful it was for something that is so common. And so that was kind of percolating in the back of my brain, something that I was trying to deal with. And then, I got pregnant with my daughter, she's now 3. And while I was about 7 months pregnant, that's when I came up with the idea. And it was kind of a similar story. I had a typical pregnancy. I didn't have any crazy symptoms. I wasn't dealing with anything next level. And I was still shocked by how awful it was. And this is a wanted pregnancy. This was a desperately wanted child. This was a very typical pregnancy. I had no major complications. And it was still so shocking to me that there were so many things that we don't talk about, symptoms that were more gruesome than I was expecting, things that people who should know these things, just things that they didn't know. Or weren't able to tell me. So many questions I had, so much misinformation, so much gray area where people pretend to be very confident. And I was really shocked by it. I was like, this is like the oldest medical problem we have as people. This is the one medical situation that's basically universal. Pregnancy, birth affects
as old as humanity.
Person, yeah. And it's like we've all, even if you're not going to have a child yourself, you were born. Like every one of us has experienced it, and yet it is so steeped in mystery. And there are so many things that we don't tell women when they get pregnant. So it was just this kind of this outrage about how we view pregnancy, how the medical industry treats women, how, other people who are helping their birthing partners treat women, that kind of got me really outraged. And when I'm outraged, I write a horror novel about it. That's just kind of how I deal with it. yeah, that's kind of how I get through the day. Sorry. So that's where that came from. And it was a good enough why that it really helped me when the book got hard.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so I was going to ask you, Danielle, about pregnancy and horror, why those two things meshed so well together. But I feel like you have preemptively answered that there's this pregnancy is this like ordinary horror almost that women deal with just on their day-to-day lives being pregnant. But so let's talk about, so I like by itself, pregnancy is a subject for horror, but let's talk about the kind of exquisite way you elevate the horror in Delicate Condition, exploring the occult, kind of taking this sort of this, not to say that body horror is ordinary, but the kind of ordinary body horror of pregnancy and escalating that into the occult. And I know the occult is a subject that you've been drawn to in your previous fiction. So what about that felt so right for Delicate Condition, and what draws you to kind of exploring like the darkness of like mysticism?
Well, I find it so interesting because, the things that we think of as the occult or witches, witchcraft, these are words that were created to really define women who were acting as midwives, women who were involved in the world of childbirth before we had doctors, before the so-called the educated medical establishment. I hate putting that in quotes because I don't want to imply that medicine today is like somehow like not real, but like, when you look at the history of how the medical establishment that we see today basically took over what was once something that was dominated by women, dominated by herb witches and midwives and healers. You can see that it was very much a campaign by men, by educated men to take over this business that was really originally done by women. And we see throughout history, throughout the world, those women being labeled as witches and being called witches. So it's just such a linked subject already to be talking about witchcraft and pregnancy. Those things you can't really separate them because of the history. So that was fascinating to me, just the idea that, that those two things are so closely linked. And also I'm going to get super nerdy and English major here, but if you go back and let's do it, let's get there.
Yeah.
If you go back even further and you look at, like the Celtic and goddess-based religions that Christianity basically, took over and they wiped them out. Yeah. Those religions were really based around this idea of the woman as somehow like goddess-like because of, the ability to give birth. And that those two things were so linked. And of course, Christianity comes in and they paint them in a different light. So it's no longer that these women are goddesses or that these women are somehow holy. Now it's that these women are witches and they are coming to, tempt you into a life of, of evil witchcraft and debauchery and whatnot. And again, it's just this thing that it is so it's so linked to, basically men's inability to deal with the fact that women can create life and they can't.
Right. No, I was just thinking to myself, wow, the criminalization of women and their bodies around reproduction sounds very,
very old story, unfortunately.
No, I love this. And this is so fascinating to me. And it's less that you were in Delicate Condition, that you're kind of uniting these disparate kind of subjects. You're more just uncovering and like restoring a history that's always kind of been there connected to pregnancy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, so there are these little vignettes throughout the story,
Mhm.
where I'm like talking about pregnancy, and, birthing people throughout history. And as I was researching those, you just see like how it's just the same story. It's the story of how we've basically demonized women and made them witches, made them evil, made the things that make us powerful, and make us frightening to men. Those things were painted in, a way to make them seem evil.
Like I said, everyone, there's so much to talk about with this book. I mean, it is just, this should be your August, September, October book club book. Danielle, I'm going to ask you one more question before I hop over to listener and reader questions. And this one is hopefully a fun one. So I know that you have had kind of an extraordinary experience with Delicate Condition and its TV option. Can you tell us a little bit about this, whatever you can share?
Oh, yes. So this is hard because a lot of this is very hush hush. I'm not allowed to say much, but the news has broken that it will be the new season of American Horror Story. So yes, it's just
incredible.
Beyond thrilling. Words cannot describe the feeling of knowing that this is going to be, made into such an incredible, iconic TV show. So
your character is going to be on screen. You're going to be looking at the people you created.
It is something that, like, even as I'm talking about it, and I know it's really happening, I have to keep reminding myself that it's real.
Yeah.
I think that most writers have this experience of this is like a massive bucket list item. So I feel very, very lucky.
I am so excited for you. And if we have time later, I'll ask what your plans are to celebrate like the premiere of American Horror Story.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Because I hope it involves like
figure out something
champagne.
big.
And yeah, I love it. Okay. I have a ton more questions for you, Danielle, but I want to switch over to listener questions because we have some amazing questions that were submitted from listeners. So the first one that I'm going to toss to you is from Dave. And Dave wants to know, when you're writing a book, do you create characters and the situation and then get surprised by how they grow and react? Or are you one of those writers who fully outlines a story and you know how it's going to end, all the details before you start writing?
Oh, Dave, I love this question so much because it's about process and technique. And these are like my all-time favorite topics, but I don't know that I can separate those two things out. So Ashley knows this because we've been on many panels together, but I'm a huge outliner. I love outlines. I create very detailed outlines where I figure out exactly what happens in every chapter, down to lines of dialogue that then will make it into the actual book. So I spend months sometimes in the process of just intricately outlining my work so that I feel like I have a real understanding of the world and the story and what I'm trying to accomplish. And then, once I have this outline, this kind of a map for where I want the story to go, I really try and jump into the first draft with as much, I'm trying to think of a word that describes that, but I can't really be flexible because I have this outline, but I do try to surprise myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'll write a very fast first draft where I'm kind of letting myself loose a little bit and letting myself follow threads within the character, within lines of dialogue, within parts of the story that aren't necessarily in the outline, just to see if it takes me someplace a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
So I do try and marry, like, I'm definitely an outliner. I do not understand how people can pants a story. I have so much admiration for people who are
unicorns
in my opinion. Like, how? Yeah. Explain it to me. But I do try and keep a little bit of that initial excitement and drama when I'm doing my first, like, really bad first draft. And that's usually when the character starts just to get super like woohoo, like hippy dippy writer moment. But that's when the character like starts speaking to me and I figure out who she is and what she's trying to do. And I can sort of kind of bend the outline in places so that it feels more like the person whose story I'm telling, as opposed to just like the writer trying to kind of force a plot onto a character, which just never works great.
I know. To me, I know exactly what you're talking about. To me, that's like that beautiful magic that happens in the writing process when you've like laid that skeleton out for yourself, and then the work kind of takes a little bit of a life of its own.
Oh, it's totally true. It's just like you're allowed to be kind of free, but you have this tight, you have this like safety net where you know how to get back to what you're trying to accomplish. Because I know you do really long, crazy outlines too.
We are twins.
More intense than mine, which is surprising.
I mean, yours sounded pretty much like mine, and it's like I think of it as like jumping into a deep ocean with swim floaties on. So it's like, it's all there. I can go as far as I want or in whatever crazy direction, but I know I'm not going to fully drown because
there's always a way to kind of course correct.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about with the excellent question. So from Cheryl wants to know, do you enjoy drawing up your protagonist or your bad guy / bad girl more? Which one is more fun to work on?
It really depends on the book. I feel like I'm like not answering people's questions here. I'm so sorry. But like with this book, the bad guy, the antagonist was really secretive and in the background, and you don't know who they are for most of the book. So I was able to kind of draw out other characters and make a lot of like good red herrings and misdirect characters that seem like they're up to no good. And I was able to really fill her world with these shady people that you just can't quite trust. And that was really, really fun because you're thinking to yourself, what are the different ways that people can actually be hurting a character without really hurting them, so like, how are they being manipulative? How are they messing with her worldview? How can we keep them on that line of like, is this a friend or is this not a friend? And that was really fun, and really made me think a lot more about how, I don't know, some of the subtle ways that you can make somebody really evil. I come from YA horror, and the YA antagonists are like way more obviously evil. They're like literally demons. And it's way more just like, oh, well, it's just like, it's just like a weird fan or like a friend who's not being like totally honest, or, like it's all of these other ways that people can be kind of creepy, and we don't know which one is really behind it all. So that I think that was probably the most fun about this book.
What I'm hearing is do not mess with Danielle, because she has perfected many insidious ways to make you think you're going crazy.
All of the ways. I know all of the ways to mess with you. I studied them.
I love it so much. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so this is from Abina, and I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. What was your hardest scene to write in Delicate Condition?
The ending. And I 100% the ending. I really started this book with an idea of some big scenes that I wanted to hit. And some ways in which I wanted to, just delve into some of the more gruesome aspects of being pregnant. And those were so fun to do. And then, as I mentioned before, there are a bunch of vignettes where I look at different experiences of pregnancy, or just different ways that people are, dealing with pregnancy of other people, if they're not themselves pregnant. I was able to really have a lot of fun with kind of working, on those. And the beginning was so much fun. Like, so much of the book was so much fun. And then when it came time to pull it all together at the end in a way that was cohesive and I wanted it to feel really earned and really correct. Like, I wanted you to get to the end and feel like, yes, this is the only way it could have ended. And so like in early drafts, as I'm still trying to kind of pull it all together, some of my early drafts of how I wanted to end it just didn't feel like that. It didn't feel as cohesive and earned as I really wanted it to be. So I feel like I was really working on the end and trying to pull the the threads together a little tighter and make it a little bit more polished and a little bit more, satisfying even through to the last draft. It was really, that was by far the most difficult part of the book to write.
Can I just say you nailed it? You absolutely nailed it. The end is so satisfying. And what you said, that it couldn't have ended another way. If for everyone who's watching, when you get to the end, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Come back and talk to Danielle and I about it on Bookstagram or
definitely.
TikTok or something. Tell us what you think. But
definitely, it was a lot of work and a lot of research, and a lot of thought put into that. So that means the world to me that it worked.
No, it absolutely did. And okay, now Danielle, do we have time? I don't have a clock in front of me because I'm here on my phone. Do we have time for like one or two?
Yeah, I think
perfect.
So.
Okay, because we have a lot of. What's that?
It's 3:30, so I think we've got a minute.
Perfect.
Yeah,
okay,
we're still good.
So, I have a question here from Jazz Marie, which again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So, did you gain inspiration for the book from Rosemary's Baby or other horror-related stories? And I just want to point out the incredible like blurbs and acclaim this book has gotten the praise for being a feminist update of Rosemary's Baby, a much needed feminist update of Rosemary's Baby. And just for everyone who may be watching, who doesn't know, Rosemary's Baby was originally a book written by a man, that was then adapted into a very famous film that you're probably familiar with, directed by a man, a very controversial man, director, Roman Polanski. And so this idea of a feminist update to Rosemary's Baby is so cool and so provocative. And so I love this question. Thank you, Jess Marie.
Yeah, thank you so much. So first of all, just all of the comparisons to Rosemary's Baby have been so incredibly, like, it's been such an honor to be compared to such an iconic horror novel and film. I love both of them. I think they're phenomenal. And just like have loved being compared to them. I had not read them when I came up with the idea for the book. I had not read Rosemary's Baby. I had not seen the film. I, kind of like had a vague awareness of what it was just because I'm a horror fan. But I just hadn't, delved down the Rosemary's Baby rabbit hole by that point. And so I came up with the idea of the book. Honestly, it was more a response to Alien, the movie Alien. So I'm a huge Alien fan. My cats are named after characters from Alien. Big fan. I saw it when I was like just a little tiny child.
What are your cats' names?
Ripley and Jones.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, Ripley and Jones are the only two survivors from Alien. It's the woman and her cat, which just, yes. So yeah, huge fan. And I was basically like talking about the movie with my husband, and, I've told this story so many times, so apologize if you've heard it before, but like, Alien's phenomenal, but it's essentially a movie where a guy was like, what's the scariest thing I can think about? And he comes up with, like, wouldn't it be really crazy if you were just growing something in your body and you had no control over it and it was stealing all of your nutrients and resources for itself, and then it just like burst out of you in this crazy gory mess? And I'm just like, yeah, so like pregnancy.
Can you even imagine?
Like, can you even imagine? Like, can you imagine? And it's like he had no idea. He was just like, this would be crazy. And it's like, yeah, dude, it is crazy. So I was going on like a weird feminist rant with my husband about that, and when I came up with the idea, and then I decided to read Rosemary's Baby and watch the movie just to make sure I wasn't overlapping with anything, because obviously that is the shadow of Rosemary's Baby is huge. You cannot write or do anything within the space of pregnancy horror without contend with the master, so it's been such an honor to be called kind of a, like a feminist update to it, because that's really quite a thing to be allowed to do. But yeah, I wasn't inspired by it. And as much as I love the story and the book, and I think, it's just all flawless, it really does feel like pregnancy is described by a man. Because Rosemary, throughout both the book and the film, she never feels anything but like an undying love for her unborn child. And it's a desire to protect. She is pretty sure that the baby is a him. So I'll use him, and a desire to protect him, which is lovely. And I'm sure that we would all love to think of mothers as being that perfectly selfless at all times. That was not my experience of pregnancy.
Mhm.
You know, when you're pregnant, you don't know the baby yet. You know, it just is this creature inside of you. It's this, you know, this anonymous creature, and you start to kind of feel connected to it, especially later in pregnancy. But early on, it's just a very bizarre, surreal experience to have this thing that's not you take over your body.
Mhm.
And while I was very concerned about, you know, my baby's safety, and I very much wanted to meet her, and I was very excited about her, I was also terrified and confused and angry and like all of these other emotions. And I had a normal pregnancy, right? Like I did not have a
Mhm.
pregnancy like Anna in Delicate Condition has. And so it just struck me as I'm reading about Rosemary, who's literally about to give birth to the Antichrist, that her, like, she just doesn't have any more complicated emotions about it. And she at no point is thinking to herself, like, baby, this isn't worth it, you know, like all of this stuff. So I thought that was interesting. And that's like, I really wanted to tackle some of those things when I was doing my, you know, my version of a pregnancy horror story, because Anna desperately wants to have a child, but she's also terrified and she knows something's wrong, and she's, you know, frustrated that nobody's listening to her, and she's all of these other things. And I just really wanted that to reflect more at least what my experience of pregnancy actually was.
I love that so much. And I'm so glad that you wrote that. I mean, just that. And I feel like your book joins this canon that is small but very mighty right now. This trend of women writing pregnancy and horror. I'm thinking of Night Bitch by Rachel
Oh yeah.
Yoder, The Upstairs House by Julia Fine, The Push by Ashley Audrain. Just this kind of reclamation by women writers, such powerful women writers, to kind of otherize motherhood and expose motherhood as a thing that is can be viscerally unpleasant and alienating, and all of these things, just at the same time that it can be wonderful and blessed, you know, like all of those things that we typically think of.
Yeah,
And
there's
so,
always been
yes.
some pushback to admitting that motherhood and pregnancy can be complicated. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
as though by admitting that we have other feelings, that we're somehow taking away from the miracle of it or the beauty of it or all of this other stuff. And I just don't believe that. You know, I think it's complicated. I think it's messy. And I think that it's really quite natural to admit that those things are happening. So I am hugely honored to be compared to those writers. They were definitely inspirations while I was working on this book. Yeah, there have been some really phenomenal female horror and thriller writers who are working in this space, and I'm just completely in awe of them.
Yeah, not to like stand on a soapbox, you know,
I
by
do.
any means,
Do
but
it.
it's just, I think that we do ourselves such a disservice by not exploring um, the very complicated nature of pregnancy. And I think that and the painful nature of pregnancy and the toll that pregnancy takes on women, whether that pregnancy is wanted or unwanted. And I think that we are seeing some of the detriments, you know, in our kind of current legal atmosphere and landscape, to not having, I mean, there are a lot of things that are contributing to that landscape, but one small part of it, I think, is, you know, that for so long, ideas of like everyone wants to be a mother and motherhood is this uncomplicated joy, and, you know, and this thing that isn't as, we're not going to talk about the fact that it is often fatal to mothers, you know, all of these kind of horrific things that your book makes space for and takes seriously for women. So I just think
Thank you.
I'm hugely a fan and awe of your book, both on craft levels and just what it's doing for women in this conversation. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about me and get back to our reader questions. Okay, so Bridget wants to know, what do you love most about the world of mystery and suspense and darkness? I love that question.
Oh my God, so many things. I love the feeling of being scared. And I know that's so weird, but like, I like to, like, I know that a lot of people aren't horror fans. Hopefully nobody who's in this, in this event, but I always compare it to like eating spicy food or drinking coffee, doing anything where the initial experience isn't completely pleasant. Is once you start seeing the nuance, once you start getting into, you know, like the depths of what it is, you start just really appreciating it. And I think horror is the same way. So I was brought up on horror. I've been watching that. It's probably the genre that I have had the most experience with in my life. My mom started reading me Stephen King when I was very, very small child, letting me watch like famous horror movies.
Amazing.
Very, very small child. She introduced it to me very young. It's my family's favorite genre. We all just come together on horror. It's something that we agree on just completely. And so I have a really deep history with it. And I think that now, like, just that feeling of, I don't know what's going to happen next. And I'm sure you've experienced this as well. You know, when you're a writer and you study craft so deeply, it can be really hard to pick up any kind of a story and not immediately know how it's going to end. Because you just
husband hates it.
You just know all of the tricks. And I feel like the genre that still has the ability to surprise me consistently is horror, because there's so many different paths that you can go down. And so I don't find myself trying to guess the ending as frequently. I get to just be deliciously surprised, which is,
I love that,
fun feeling.
It still has the magic for you. You get to be the fan, the reader, the spectator. I love that.
I'm a pale indoor sort of person. Like, I do better in the dark and like inside. Like, I'm a winter girl, you know, like I don't.
Yes, I definitely know.
Put me on a beach in the sunshine. I'll explode in flames. So
yes, you should have seen me applying bronzer to look like a person who had seen the sun in the last few weeks.
Sitting right in front of the window. Like, look, does it look like my skin has color?
I know, I can't. I have to close my blinds so I don't get a sunburn from the sun through the window. Anyway,
I'm wearing a lot of sunscreen. We're just vampires. We're just vampires. We were made for the summer.
Yeah. Vampires with their cat familiars. That's what's happening here.
That sounds right.
Okay, so our friend Melody asks, other than your own, what is one of your favorite books of 2023?
I am so glad you asked this, because this gives me a chance to gush about Ashley's book, Midnight is the Darkest Hour, which was so good. It was just, it was just so good. It's just one of those, like, I feel like I'm always looking for some sort of like Southern Gothic, but scary, but make it sexy and like set in like, and it was just everything I wanted. And so my only complaint is that I read it too fast and then it was over and I didn't have more of it. Like, can you just please write like 3 of them? Can I just like live in that world forever? Because oh my God, it was so good. So yes, that if you know, I'm sure every single person on here has already ordered Midnight, but if you haven't, it is so fun. Yeah, so that is like huge props to Ashley for that masterpiece. It was so good. Yeah, I loved that. I also have a friend who I have to do a shout out just because we're in the world of like, you know, maternity thriller horror. And it's a book called You Should Have Told Me. It's one of my other writing besties books. It is a thriller where a woman, her husband goes missing in the middle of the night. I think it's actually her partner. Her partner goes missing in the middle of the night. And she has to figure out where he went and why he's gone, kind of unravel the mystery of what's going on with him. And the entire time she's doing it, she's like a breastfeeding brand new mom who's struggling very badly from postpartum depression. It's one of the most inventive twists on thrillers that I've seen recently. It's like all of the things you love about a thriller where she's like uncovering clues and like hiding from the cops and like trying to find this guy and doing dangerous stuff, but she's doing it literally while holding a newborn and often breastfeeding the newborn. It's phenomenal. You should have told me, Leah Conan, definitely get it. Get Midnight by Ashley. The thriller game this year is good, let's just say.
Yeah. The thrillers this year are phenomenal.
God, so good. It's
yes, and thank you for those kind words. I fully melted, but I'm back now.
So easy.
And
so
also, I've heard such incredible things about Leah's book, about that book. So I am taking this as my sign to purchase it from Barnes & Noble.
I also have her arc for her brand new book that comes out next winter here. I don't know if I'm allowed to show the cover. I think I am, but I probably shouldn't, but it's called Keep Your Friends Close. It's so good. Anyway, I have it.
Okay. Very excited. Isn't that one of the best parts about being a writer is get the early access to books?
I know. I love it so much. It never gets old.
It never does. My husband's like, so today you are writing your own book, reading a book to blurb, reading a book to talk to someone about, and then on your downtime, you're going to read another book for fun. And I was like, yep, this is the life I always dreamed for myself as a pale son-averse child.
I know, as an indoor person. No, and when I was like a poor English major, they were like, the job doesn't exist where you just read books for a living. And I would like to say, would you like to bet? Because I found it.
Yeah. Yes, you just have to do the hard part of like writing them.
I mean, sure, like the incredibly hard part of navigating the publishing industry, which is its own just gauntlet of challenges. But once you get through it, you just get to write and read and live in literature.
Riches await
your life.
Yes.
The best.
Okay, Danielle, one more question, and then we're going to wrap this up. Rachel wants to know who your favorite character is that you have created in a book and why.
In a book, period?
In a book, period. And then maybe I'll ask you, I'm going to ask about this book. Let's talk about Delicate Condition.
Because like I have a couple of answers throughout several books, but like
or give us your two answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Siobhan Walsh was so much fun to write. I just wanted to talk about Siobhan because she was a delight to write. So in Delicate Condition, Siobhan is she basically was a huge it girl actress of the 90s. So think like Winona Ryder or I had like a list of them that I was like Brooke Shields, Angelica Houston, just this like it girl of the 90s. And just one of those women who was on the cover of every magazine, who had style that you dreamed about, just this like perfect it girl. And then, she was nominated for awards and she was hugely famous. And as she's gotten older, she has stayed in, the public sphere, but she has started struggling with cancer. And so she has breast cancer at the beginning of the book. And so she's just this insanely cool, badass woman, and she's basically started shaving her head as just a way to be like, F you, like, I don't care. I don't need my image. And like her hair, she had this really long hair that was kind of her iconic like look. And she was just so fun to research. I basically just went through and just found pictures of like the coolest possible actresses from the 90s and like pinned them and like studied how they dressed. And I came up with all of these details around what I thought the coolest possible person would do. And so she like listens to French hip hop and she has like a signature scent that was made for her and lives in this like incredible warehouse loft and just like, is constantly dating new, incredible, famous men, but like never really settling down. She's just this like the epitome of cool type person. And she was just so fun to write because it was just pure like wish fulfillment, like all of these things that I wish I could be that I am never going to be. She is not an inside person,
first of all. Second of all,
you're also very cool.
Thank you. Who I pictured was Johnny Depp's first wife.
Oh God.
She's French. She's
Yes.
gorgeous. She's the mother of Lily Rose Depp.
Yes. And that's
she just
exactly it. Like just that kind of or I have
effortlessly
a
cool.
Like Sarah Jessica Parker with what's his name? Oh my God, I just totally blanked on like the most famous man in the world's name.
Brad Pitt. No. It's not Brad Pitt.
No, not Brad
famous
Pitt.
man.
Iron Man. What's his name? Robert Downey Jr.
So
like back during the era where she was dating Robert Downey Jr., where they were just like, she just had the crazy curls and like the tiny dresses and just looked so effortless. And he looked like, stoned out of his mind, but they were always on red carpets and looked like they just had a fight, but it was a very sexy fight. And like so many pictures of her, and there are just so many good examples, I think, from the 90s. So she was just so much fun to research and write. And then I really got to write my favorite thing, which is strong female friendships, because she's very close friends with Anna. And I really wanted to write a character who felt like a big sister that you never had, and who helped her through kind of a lot of the stuff. And so she was just so much fun to write. I loved writing Siobhan.
She definitely one of my favorite characters, was obsessed with their friendship. And we didn't even scratch the surface of talking about how glamorous Delicate Condition is, by the way. Anna's an actress. It's just like, it's in this, she kind of departs to the Southampton, just like it's this world of glamour.
Oh God, another super fun thing to research is just Hampton's real estate. I just was on the Sotheby's like real estate website for hours at the beginning of the process, just looking through these like gorgeous, massive mansions. Cause I'm like, okay, Talia, whose house it is, she's like in tech and she has a ton of money. And has this really like opulent mansion in Southampton. And I was just like, I want to know what every room looks like. I want to know what the bathrooms look like. I spent so much time researching bathrooms, you guys. It's actually
Should I stay there for research purposes? I mean,
to like buy this $30 million Hamptons house so that I can really understand.
I can write it off for research, right? No one take tax advice from me. I don't know how that works.
We don't know how taxes work. But that was so much fun.
Yes.
That was so much fun.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. And so
my things in really beautiful over the top mansions from here on out.
And I just, another side note, cannot wait to see how that translates to the screen. It's going to be fabulous.
It's going to be so, so cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Because if that's how to do anything, it's how to make a beautiful set. You know what I mean? Like it's always gorgeous. So I cannot.
I trust Ryan Murphy because I've already seen like the little stalker I am, celebrity stalker I am. Yeah. Some of the pictures and everything of the cast. And I'm just like, oh my God, I've had a lot of fun trying to get who the different actors are playing. So.
Yeah,
it's going to be so fun.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see how it turns out. Okay,
so everyone needs to buy and read Delicate Condition before it is going to appear on your screens. And for everyone who has already ordered a signed copy from Barnes and Nobles, those will be delivered very soon. And there's links here for you to purchase.
Thank you so much.
And Danielle, you're just such an incredible talent. And we are blessed.
Ashley, you're incredible. Thank you for doing this and asking me questions and making me feel so special. It's been just such a lovely event. Thank you guys all for showing up. This has been a delight, just a pure delight.
Thank you all so much.
Right. Bye, guys.
Bye.